Excuse my tardiness for Sunday school. We had to set up around here this morning. Better late than never. Amen. We're going to start off with a word of prayer. Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord God, we humble ourselves before your throne, giving you thanks and praise for another day. Thanking you for life, health, and strength, and thanking you for your goodness and your mercy. Thanking you for your kindness and your compassion. Thank you for the love of God that shed abroad in the Holy Ghost that has been given unto us. God, we count it a privilege to be alive another day. God, we honor you and we bless your holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We're coming from the book of Numbers. The book of Numbers, chapter number 14. Numbers 14. Starting at verse number 10. First of all, I'm going to read the preface and the history of the text so we know where we're coming from. The history of the text. If you want to study the word and teach the word, study the history of the text first. And it'll be more edifying. So you won't lose the people. My first bishop said, don't lose the people in the context. Go from the history of the text. It says here, throughout most of Numbers and the Exodus generation of the Israelites was faithless, rebellious, and ungrateful for God, God's miracles and provision. Major murmuring occurred among the people soon after leaving Mount Sinai. Miriam and Aaron talked against Moses. When you're going through your experiences, and the name of your lesson is God's forgiveness. God's forgiveness. God's forgiveness. Sunday school lesson dealing with God forgiveness on today. And when you're going through a wilderness experience with the Lord, you're going to expect some murmuring and complaining. His own brothers and sisters turned on him while they were traveling in the wilderness. Well, they could have been out in 2 days. They were there for 40 years. 40 represent the wilderness. They rose up against Moses, and Israel is as a whole rebellion and stubborn unbelief at Kadesh, and refused to advance into Canaan. Kadesh and many other Levites rebel against Moses. Pushed to the limit by a rebellious people, Moses finally sinned in anger and expiration, and Israel worshiped Baal-Hor. All Israelites were 20 years old and older at Kadesh, except Joshua and Caleb. Purchased in the wilderness, or perished in the wilderness. A new generation of Israelites was finally brought to the eastern border of the promise. When you're leading people, expect rebellion. You have some that follow a leader, and some of those who rise up against it. This is something that I'm experiencing even right now, trying to lead up under prophetic fire and word ministries. You have those who want to be saved and those who don't want to be saved. There are some who come in with their own vision, and there are some who come in with the vision. You have to be very, very mindful when you're leading people. And it has nothing to do with race, sex, or color. It's the spirit of what they carry. Very mindful when you're leading God's people. T.D. Jakes did a very strong conference back in the early 90s called When Shepherds Lead. Well, he should have broken it down a little bit more. When shepherds get stabbed. And some of these people is crazy. They'll wound you while you're leading, and you'll bleed while you're leading. And even in your bleeding, you still need to be healed. There are pastors who need a covering over them, and they need counsel. Just here recently, a pastor preached against suicide and turned around and did the very thing he preached against, because he was having a hard time leading the people. When you give people counsel and consultation, some people will hear you and some people won't. God felt a spiritual inkling about Moses. Moses murdered a man, and Moses also had the spirit of anger. He called them people rebels. Everybody's heart is not softened when they come to the church. You have to be very mindful when you're leading people. What type of spirit or motive are they bringing with them? And the purpose of this here, Numbers was written to tell why Israel did not enter into the promised land. And immediately after leaving Mount Sinai, it illustrates God's requirement of faith for his people and his chastisement and judgment for rebellion. And his ongoing purpose was evidently realized. God showed them miracles. God fed them meat enough where they could eat it, heal. He gave them water fresh out of the rock where they can drink it. And they still murmured and complained. When you're trying to lead people, expect some murmuring, as I said in the beginning. New Testament fulfillment, Israel's murmuring and unbelief are mentioned as warnings to believers under the new covenant. The seriousness of Baal's sin at Kadesh, or the Korah, the sons of Korah, they also rebelled against Moses, are mentioned. Jesus refers to the brown snake to illustrate his uplift to some, that those who believe in him might not perish but have eternal life. When you allow rebellion to come in, you sin against God. And that's what the Israelites did on this moment. You have to be very mindful. You must have character leading God's people. Strength, consultation of the word, prayer, and fasting. When you are leading people, it can be very difficult. Even in your home, it can be difficult. You're the only Christian in your home, expect some rebellion. When parents are trying to lead their children in the right direction, you can expect some rebellion. The rebellion of Israel. But all the congregation bade stone them with stones, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation, at verse number 10, chapter 14, before all the children of Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long will this people provoke me? And how long will it be ere they will leave me? For all the signs which I have showed them are among them. Now verse number 11 expresses what's really going on here in the text. If you have a Bible and you have a lot of footnotes at the bottom, you should read them to the people so they can get an understanding. Moses is their leader. The children of Israel is following Moses. The sons of Korah and his sister and brother, Miriam and Aaron, are also in the leading. The children of Israel, most of them died off the scene at the age of 40 and up. 40 represent what? The wilderness. Again, you have to be mindful. And it says here, at the heart of Israel rebellion was unbelief, which grew out of the failure to remember God's past faithfulness, to trust him as their Lord, and to believe him according to the word. There's many scriptures that go along with this text. And one of them is Psalm 119, verse 37, and then verse 41. And pray for those in leadership here, because some are ill. One is very sick. Deaconess Ruffin is very ill this morning. Psalm 119. Sounds like one of my brothers in the gospel. I know that foot. Yep, that's him. It don't take a lot of discernment to discern around the corner. That's Minister Hollingsworth. Good morning, man of God. We're coming from Psalms 119, verse 37, verse 41. Psalms 119. Verse 37 and verse 41. It says here, turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in the way. Verse 41 says, let thy mercies come also unto me, O Lord, even thy salvation according to thy word. Those are the two scriptures there. There's several other scriptures. But the main word in this text is trust. And we must trust in the Lord even in our wilderness. Trusting God is an antidote to unbelievers. To believe God means to trust Him and His word, and to accept what He says as truth, and act according to the anchor of your life and His promise, to walk in His ways and to love Him with all your heart and with all thine soul. That means you believe God all the way. There is no impartiality with Him. You don't believe partial of what God says. You believe, do you go to the store and buy a slice of bread? They'll be calling the police on you. You believe you buy the whole loaf. You purchase it with money. So when we believe God, we believe the whole word, written word. Now, remember this. You will always, you will follow the word, but you won't know all that this Bible says. Remember the word. When you go to the store, you don't buy a slice of bread, but they're gonna call the police on you. But you buy the whole loaf. So you study this word in season and out of season, and believe what you are able to comprehend. Apply the word to your heart. Trust in the Lord with thine own heart, and He shall bring it to pass. Sometimes you study the word and you receive a divine revelation. Oh yes. There's several other scriptures here. So love the Lord with your whole heart and your mind and your spirit and your soul. We're going to turn to Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse number 12. And we're in the Old Testament, what we call the Torah. The Torah. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse number 12. And it says here, and now Israel, what doeth the Lord thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, and to walk in all thy ways, and to love Him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thine soul. And it says here, repeated, God emphasizes to Israel the necessity of the love that comes from the heart. God did not want His people to be a substitute heart or half-heart, felt love for Him, mere outward religious. He wanted their hearts to be whole. Ezekiel said it better. He said, take out of me a heart of stone and put in me a heart of flesh. God wants us to serve him with his whole heart and really love him and really do that which he has called us to do. And it says here, see articles on faith and grace. The presence of the faith leads us to be accepted by God and counted righteous before him. Now I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 15, verse number 6. Genesis 15, verse number 6. And it says here, and he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for his righteousness. That's just a quote. Abraham, talk about Abraham, the father of the faith, who had much faith in God. He had so much faith in God, he moved to another state and country. His name went from Abram to Abraham. He is considered the father of our faith, one of the faithful fathers, one of the forefathers in the truth of God. God wants us to really believe in him, and Abraham did. When he went, is this the same Abraham that would go sacrifice his son? Minister Hollingsworth? And he went to sacrifice his son, and there was a ram in the thicket. That's faith. He obeyed God, but he didn't have to take his son, so they took the ram. God wants to see where your faith is. People can't see just the wild things. Do that over just a little. Could you do that over there? No, but they want to see your faith. Nah, we don't play that game here. We're going to move the table of the video in a few seconds. He ain't shy. Didn't I tell y'all? We coming from St. John chapter 3:36. He is not shy. Don't believe that. St. John 3:36. And it says here, he that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth in him. So you must believe. Now this is New Testament faith. We both believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. That's why we're saved, and that's why here we're recording this, and that's why we're teaching this morning. You have to believe. And God will reveal himself through his Son. He has revealed himself to me many of times. I heard my father say something wise, my natural father, Minister Randy Muhammad, say something wise. And this is not to be cutthroat. He made a statement to somebody in the family. I won't say their name, but it was hilariously funny. The way he said it. He told this person, he said, you pray to a God that don't exist. He told this one person. He said, but I noticed that when my son prayed, who's supposed to be so slow, God moves. That shocked me. I didn't know he was paying no attention. He said he prays to a God that moves. And you over here talking about you're a Christian to this other person, that God don't move on none of your behalf. And they were missing the baptism of the Holy Ghost. One of my relatives walked up to him and said, you need to quit playing with God and hide behind the name of God because you're not real. A woman preacher told her, said to this particular person, honey, what you believe is tradition. You don't believe the whole Bible. And they were offended by that statement, but it was the truth. They were traditionalists. The Bible speaks about the traditions of man, which is found in Colossians chapter 3, verse number 12. We'll talk about that some other time. See, what am I trying to tell you today? If you're going to believe God, believe Him all the way. Believe Him all the way. Believe by faith and not by sight. You have to believe the whole Word. And everything that you read in the Word, you may not understand. But if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, that's all that matters. Now I'm going to turn to Romans 4. And the verses that, you remember the verses that I sent the text to you, sir? Yes, sir. Romans 4 and 11. And it says here, and he received the signs of the circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith which he had yet been uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, through though they be not circumcised, that righteousness may be imputed unto them also. Still talking about Abraham. Even though they believe and they were not circumcised, back then they did the circumcision of a certain area. We ain't going into all that detail. But back then, if you was not circumcised, you were considered an unclean man. And I just found out here recently, somebody told me they were never circumcised. I looked at them like it was crazy. Never. That's an unclean spirit attached to that person. We're trying to sit here about this serious. But yeah, that's hilarious. To hear somebody say they've never been circumcised. There's two circumcisions. The personal male factor and then the circumcision of what? The heart. Two. But you still have to be circumcised. And then naturally so and spiritually so. And then here's the one of our
Coach Gordon said canceled.
This man is so funny. This is John Turk Williams, who's late again. I need y'all to pray for him. You?
I was tired last night.
So I pray for him. Seems like the party. He still got Eddie Murphy's album, I Like to Party all the time. So y'all pray for him. He's funny. And I'll talk to you later. He's funny. But he came to bring us the Sunday school lesson and the power of the Word. Well, we're just going to stay with Numbers chapter 8. And so it's faith. Abraham was the father of faith, and he was teaching others to believe. But then you have to collaborate the father of faith and then the faith maker, God. And then his son, Jesus Christ, also had faith. When he cast out devils, healed the sick, raised the dead, died on the cross, he even forgave the thief that was next to him. When you believe in Jesus Christ, our source and our strength comes from him. Amen. There's no other way. The Bible says if you go through any other door, you become what? A thief and a robber. Most of the time, the thief and the robber is not telling you what time they're coming. They're going to vandalize your house anyway. You never know. I know in my house, every time I walk out the door, you're not coming in here. You know how people know how to take credit cards and swipe the door and try to get in. You can try. And when they walk in, the Holy Ghost going to hit them. They'll be all right. But people crazy. Galatians chapter 3, verse 6, he said that's too much information. I've seen it. What you talking about? And it says here, the blessings of Abram. Still talking about faith. Still dealing with the children of Israel. Abram was from the Old Testament, where mercy rests upon over them, a cloud of the anointing. So he walked by faith when he left one state to the next and took his family with him. He was a man of faith and belief. And God expects us to be the exact same way. Galatians chapter 3, verse number 6. Even as Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. It says also here, we read already Romans 4, and read, what is this, Romans chapter 5. What did Romans chapter 5 say? And I think it's at verse 22. Resulted in justified by faith. Just read the first 5 verses and we will leave it there. Romans 5, the first 5 verses, 1 through 5.
Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through the Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 2. By whom also we have access by faith into this grace, wherein we stand and rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Verse 3. And not only so, but we the glory of tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh in patience, for patience, experience, and experience in hope. Verse 5. And hope maketh not ashamed, because and we hope not ashamed, because the love of God is a shield abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which has given us unto us.
Amen. And that's the word of God, isn't it?
Amen.
Now, going back to Numbers chapter 14, we explain verse 13. You don't interpret every verse, only those that have footnotes up under it. So we're still in the lesson, and it says, Moses said unto them, unto the Lord, then the Egyptians shall hear it, for thou broughtest up his people in thy might from among them. It says here, Moses is a classic example of a person who's so dedicated to the Lord, he is more concerned about God's reputation than his own success and honor. When believers gracefully comprehend all that God has done for them through Christ, they too will desire above all exalt the Lord and his glory, and to keep his name from falling into a reproach among unbelievers. I have seen it through the years. You have to have standards when you're living holy. Keep the name of the Lord over, above you, not under you. I heard a man say something unwise years ago, and I could have just lost my mind right there in the sanctuary. I won't say where I was and use wisdom intact, because I want nobody to crush me. When you hear a man say, let me be like God and redeem you, I think you have a real problem. That's arrogance. He said, let me be like God and redeem you. You can never be there's no second God, and there's no 3 gods on the throne. There's one God. Genesis 1 and 1. When I heard that man say it, and I looked at him, I shook my head. No, he said, I'm something else. I said, you certainly said it. I said, you got a real problem here, sir. And I walked away from him. That's when you start making yourself an idol. Prestigious, arrogance. The Bible speaks about an haughty man, a man full of pride. He had ego problems. He was egotistical, but yet a Christian. One time I heard the man say, we're the church of the living God, and I sense the rapture of Christ coming to get my church. When I received the Holy Ghost, I looked at that church in the spirit. I know God ain't coming for this. They ain't being judgmental, but it was true. When you receive the Holy Ghost, you always receive the gift of discernment. And whatever's in a person's heart will come out their mouth. What am I saying to you? Abraham was a man who followed after God. He had integrity. You go follow God like he did, you better have some integrity. And you better walk in holiness. You cannot make yourself holy. He causes you to walk in holiness. It's a process, as my sister Coco would say. Good morning, Pastor Newman. And she always say, I'm a work in progress. That's wisdom talking.
Right.
She get that. I looked at her and said, where do you get that from? She's been doing this for years. That's one of her statements. Stop telling people how saved, sanctified you are, and filled with the Holy Ghost and that with a mighty burning fire. and you cause more division in the church. But nobody need to know how gifted you are. I heard something here on Friday, and I knew it was the Lord. I was at a service at Newman at Temple of Prayer, and there was a prophet there. He's still here today. And when I seen him coming through the parking lot, I looked at his eyes and seen a fire of God in his eyes. And he shook my hand and he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Randy." He said, "God bless you." I said, "God bless you too." You got to stay humble. And I told one of my friends, I said, "That man got a word for me." Went into the sanctuary, he came to me again and shook my hand again. He did a good teaching. And he said, "I want all God's prophets and prophetess to come to the altar." I was kind of leery because I could feel stones being thrown at me. You know, you can feel stones being thrown at you. Nothing against that church. I'm not speaking against them. I'm talking about me personally. And there was a lady in the line, and I knew she shouldn't have been there. Absolutely. But it's not my place to judge. That's what you heard about. And we were holding hands. I had my eyes closed and he was praying. And all of a sudden he stopped praying and looked right at me. He said, "Brother Randy, I knew you was a prophet when I met you in the parking lot." He said, "You got a good heart." Now his head just like this, he showed his eyes and just like that. Let me tell you something. When people won't reverence you and respect you and you respect your gift, God has sent somebody 3,000 miles from across the country to give reverence. And when he said that, the whole church went quiet. We talked yesterday at 8 o'clock prayer. I've been busy every day this week. Every day. I still got strength to get up and do this. When you call to something, you don't drop everything. One thing Bishop Sanders told me years ago, he said, "Son, if you make everything, something's off." Yeah. He said, "You can't attend every meeting and you can't go to every conference." He said, "If you make everything, something is off in you and not the people." That's some strong wisdom, isn't it? But that prophet told me that. And we talked yesterday that I'm a fourth generational prophetic gift in my family. My father, my grandfather, and my mother's grandmother. And I told him, I said, "I see a fire in your eyes from your eyes all the way up to the top of your head. I seen a fire on the top of his head. God will let me eat breakfast yesterday. That's what you call consecrated." And I told him that. He looked at me and smiled, and I said, "I see TVN or Impact or somebody calling you to do a TV ministry." He said, "That's the third confirmation." He said, "You're not the only one." Sometimes we see him, but everything you see is not to be revealed for the public. You know, so let us be mindful of the things of God. And stay, even when we go through our wilderness, like Moses and the children of Israel. Moses killed a man, but God seen his potential to lead God's people. Sometimes people judge you on the outer shell, but when they see the gifting of who you are, they silence them. I've been judged before. I've been torn down, shot at, bullets shooting at me. In the spirit, when you see bullets coming at you in dreams, that's slander. They're trying to pierce you and wound you. I've had those types of dreams. People have told, one lady cut me on the side in the dream. In reality, that was in the dream, but in the natural it came to pass. A young lady said something to me a couple of weeks ago, and her words were cutting me. And the Lord said, "Don't worry about it, I'm going to deal with her too." What am I saying? In your wilderness experience, like these here, these children of Israel, do not murmur nor complain. The longer you murmur and complain in the wilderness, the longer you will be there. Where they could have been out in 2 days, they were there for 40 years. And at the age of 40 and up, most of those people died in the wilderness. And one of the people in the wilderness had 5 daughters, the daughters of Zelophehad, who wanted their father's inheritance, which is found in the book of Kings. And Moses said, "They seek me, but they seek the God that I serve." And God gave them daughters, their inheritance. Caleb and Joshua was not old. They were a little younger. The sons of Korah, there was the Levitical praise team, a family, what we call groups of families that sing together, like the Winans, the Clark sisters, where they had that Levitical praise team, and they even came up against Moses. When you're leading people, there are some that would come in with a vision, and there are some who will come in with division. That's why when new people come in, this is my theory, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hollingsworth. I've told you that I've been saying this for 2 years. And they probably try to be saying it, but it's the truth. Oftentimes we meet new people, but oftentimes we meet new spirits. Because whatever in their heart will come out their mouth. What is their motive? And this is not to be over deep, but sometimes you have to be a fruit inspector. You got to check people at the door. What is your intent? What is your motive? Why are you here? Who sent you? Who did you come from up under? You got to be prayerful. You're dealing with souls, but everybody is not coming in the name of the Lord. When people come in there and say that they're a prophet, I'm a prophet. You better check that. Who birthed you? Who did you sit up under? What was you called? Who is your covering even now? Very wise. I ain't always talk like this. You can tell you. Years in the process. But to God be the glory. And this time we'll have Mr. Hollingsworth do his verses and expound. Deaconess Ruffin was not able to be here, so I didn't get a chance to. I was supposed to do 10 to 15. Hers was supposed to be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So if you don't mind, do those 5 verses and expound them the best way you can. I'm pretty sure you already read the whole chapter. Dr. Hollingsworth is going to.
That's good too.
Yeah, I like moving here. You pray. I'm going to push this camera. Go ahead.
Some of the children of Israel, when Moses took the land out of Egypt, and like you said before, at a time in my life we should not complain. I'm thinking about verse 10. It said, all the congregation laid stones, and the glory of the Lord appeared beside the congregation before the children of Israel. And they were so mad at him. They said, at this climax, in their present rebellion, if God had not intervened, people would have killed the leaders. And the church, we're not going to get that, but he would have prayed for our people, pray for our leaders. And verse 11 said, the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people vote me? How long will you believe me? For the sign I have shown thee among them. I will smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and make them thee greater than they. I will smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make thee a greater nation than mightier than they. And Moses said unto the Lord, the Egyptians shall hear it, thou hast brought these people out in the might among them, and will tell them to the inhabitants in this land, if they have heard of this, Lord, are among his people, the Lord hath seen face to face, thy cloud has standeth over thee, will go before thee, day a pillar of cloud, and night a pillar of fire. And now if I should kill all his people, no man, no nation will inherit his fame will seek saying, but the Lord was not able to bring his people into the land which he snared unto them, and then slay them in the wilderness. And this was Moses interceded for his people. Now I beseech thee, let the power of the Lord be greater than us as spoken. The Lord is long suffering, great mercy, forgiveness, iniquity, and transgressions. This by no means declaring the guilty by iniquity, for the fathers upon the children of third generation. I will pardon thee among the people according to the greatness of their mercy, as given unto the people of Israel at this time, Egypt at this time. The Lord said, I have pardoned thee according to the word. See, Moses stood the gap for the people, even though the people wanted to stone him and his brother, and Moses prayed for people. So God, if you do this to us, people all they can hear this, they're saying that, yes, God delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, into the wilderness and killed them. He never looked bad upon God. So what God did, he stood most of the gap for them, and the punishment was the parents, they would not make it in, but the children were blessed to go into the promised land. But God told me I want the land of milk and honey. We got to believe the promises of God, God has bestowed upon us.
That's true.
And time just believing what the word of God says instead of backbiting, bickering, and complaining, we see our blessing come. Sometimes we start, a lot of times we start blessing somebody. Man, I wish this, man, I wish that. Oh, I can't stand it. Stop bickering, stop backbiting, stop murmuring, complaining. It's in the Bible, God hates, does not like us being murmuring, complaining. What we should do is stand the promise God has given us. He fed the children of Israel at nighttime. He protected them from the Egyptians. He gave them food when they didn't have no food. What more do you want? He promised you land, milk, and honey. Don't be afraid of giants. If God said he has my back, he has your back. We're supposed to believe what God said. We got to believe what the word of God says for us. We're supposed to believe what the promise said and stop murmuring and complaining. And just stand in the word of God, what God has said for our life. Amen.
Amen. Okay, excuse me. Sounds to me he had the whole lesson and all. I mean, just every all drops of it.
I told people, if the man of God says something to you, you got to believe it. And ask God to give you understanding, but believe what the man of God is saying to you for the congregation. Pray for our leaders in church. Stop trying to tear them down. Pray for them. You know, and if you're doing that, you got to not look at them. You got to look at yourself. What's going on in your life? You can start playing murmur, playing.
And when people always judging you or throwing stones at you, you better believe that's that spirit in them. There's something in them they're attracted to that spirit in you. Or they want to be just like you. I heard somebody say something years ago. Oh, I'm jealous of you, and I told them politely and politically correct. Then that mean you was working against me all these years. They hung the phone up. Because what I called out was the truth. And when they see me, how you be doing all of that? I said the Holy Ghost is a revealer of all truth. There ain't no truth in jealousy. We let you see how your heart really is. I'm learning to really listen more and less talking. Let a person talk for a whole hour. You're going to find out what they really think about you. Watch out there for that statement, oh, I was just playing. No, you wasn't. That was in your heart. God has an abundance for all his children. Walk in your blessings and not in curses. You're not cursed. If you're still living, you're a blessing. You still have potential, and God has you here on this earth for a purpose.
Right,
to fulfill that which he called you to do. I told two men of God back in 2015, called on inbox me, told God's calling was on your life. He told me he didn't believe it. A week later, he was crossing the street and had a massive heart attack and dropped dead. Because he did not believe it. Another young man, I told him God's hand was on him. God was calling him into ministry. He stepped out, he started laughing. He had a party one night and fell over the coffee table and dropped dead. Pure craziness. Wouldn't accept what I told you. So God called him home. And you can leave here before your time. Stop murmuring, stop complaining, stop judging, stop tearing down, but build up. Allow God to be the head of your life and allow him to be teaching God. Even as a believer, God is still working on all of us. David said, I was born in sin and shaken in iniquity. Did my mother conceive me? If you're born into a family that's not saved, that sin is already there. Generational curses have to be broken off the life. You got to be delivered up under the blood of the Lamb. And the Lamb is who? Jesus Christ. So he's still working on all of us. But don't complain in your wilderness. Do not complain. The longer you complain, the more you complain, the longer you're going to be there. And being in the wilderness is no joke. And even in the valley. If you haven't had a dream about the valley, I want to you. I've had dreams about being in jungles. I said, Father, what is this? The jungles. And that would know I was swinging from vine to vine. I never got stuck. A prophet told me, said, you dreamed about the jungle? I said, yeah. He said, you know that's another form of the wilderness. I said, yeah. He said, you finna be tested? And right after that, he went home to be with the Lord. He was telling me how God, he was a prophet too. I miss him so much. I can't remember his name, but I miss him. He was another prophet of God, and they rejected him. Worked for many years, and God called him home. God will give them a word and they shut them down. You can't shut down God's people.
Okay.
It's a dangerous thing for a preacher to curse another preacher in the name of God.
Can't do that.
Can't. I seen somebody the other day shook their hand and hugged them. Could look me in the face. Every problem God brought to you, you shut them down. And that's not being judgmental, that's telling the truth. Have to be careful. So we're closing out. I'm going to ask that Mr. Hollingsworth close us out in a word of prayer. And I pray that we all will bless by the Sunday school lesson, which we consider the teaching ground, the meat of the word. God's forgiveness is the theme of the lesson. And Moses had to forgive the children of Israel because of their what? Rebellious ways. Yeah. So let us be encouraged and let us not walk in rebellion, and let us walk in the truth of God. Amen.
And if Father, thank you for the Sunday school lesson, Lord God. We pray, Father God, this Sunday school lesson fall on good ground for you have fruit in their life. And they continue to have a blessed day in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Be blessed. We'll be back in a minute for morning worship. Yeah. Is she sick today?
What you say?
Earache, bronchitis, and headache. Yeah. All this happening.
Jesus help us.
So much going on.